for launch. Life pod release. Trajectory error. Collision. Thrusters disabled. Clearing main thrusters. Stand by. Thruster function restored. Brace for corrective reorientation. Collision. Obstructions detected. Increasing thrusters. Releasing parachute. Error. Release firing mechanism failure. Brace for impact. Wake up.
Hey guys, and welcome to my early access review for Subnautica 2. Just a heads up on content from last week. I had a Subnautica original game retrospective all planned and edited and ready to go, and I came back from doing the shopping and I saw lots of writing on my screen, and basically my M2 drive had failed, and so that's put me back quite a bit. I lost quite a lot of content. It's my own fault for not backing it up, but it's just one of them things. So I've now got my computer back up and running, everything's reinstalled and updated, all passwords put back in, but it just takes a while, doesn't it, as you'll know if you build your own computers. So yeah, we're back on schedule now, but I'm going to put the original Subnautica review or retrospective on the back burner for now, and just focus on the early access for Subnautica 2. So without further ado, what do I think of the Subnautica 2 early access? And in short, I absolutely love it. This is everything I was hoping for, and a little bit more actually. But it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, so let me elaborate on that. So the game opens up and you have to choose a character avatar. You've got 4 choices at the moment. I assume there'll be a few more at launch. You choose a colour scheme. There's nothing major here, and there's no difference between any of them. They're all the same, so just choose whatever you prefer and then off you go. I think this is more for when you're playing co-op. You can like distinguish between different bodies. Yeah, and then you're printed out like a Xerox person, and you appear, you gain control of your body. You're moving very slow, and it's very apparent you're not going to survive long without your first bio mod. So you kind of like hobble over to the bio, whatever it's called, jam your hand in there, and you get your first bio mod, which allows you to survive in this environment. Well, for a little bit anyway.
Gene donor found. You must adapt alien traits to survive. Sample. Adapting trimethylamine, N-oxide synthesis. Pressure tolerance increased.
So what I really love, and in brackets hate, about this introduction is they've turned things on its head. So in the first and second game, you kind of start off in this like vanilla area. It's very safe, very shallow, no big predators. In this one, you start at like 500 plus meters down, right down in the depths of this, wherever you are. It's dark, it's scary, and as I covered in my previous video, which I never released thanks to my computer, I actually suffer from what's called thalassophobia, which is a fear of deep, dark water and not knowing what's beneath your feet. But I'll cover that in my other video on Subnautica. But yeah, needless to say, this was not doing my psychological state any good. I was really terrified of this area. But I made it through, and then the sequence starts off, and you are launched into the air. The life pod comes down to like a landing site, and yeah, you start the game proper. This first moment is obviously your first impression of the game, and I remember saying wow out loud numerous times in that first few minutes. You jump out the life pod into the water, and my eyes just lit up. I was just like, this is amazing. There's colour everywhere, the fish are so well animated, the effects of the water, the bloom, the green algae in the water, the plankton. Yeah, there's just so much to look at in every direction. One of the things that was always really good about the first game and Below Zero was the lighting. I think they had that nailed down straight away. That feeling of seeing the light come right through the plankton in the water. And in this game, they've really taken that to the next level. So sometimes you'll be swimming around at night, and then you'll know the sun's coming up above the waves because shafts of light are starting to like come down through the rocks, like hitting the coral, and cast these amazing like god beams going right down through the water, and it's really incredible to watch. There's also this really defined contrast now between light and dark, and you see it straight away in the first couple of seconds of the game. As you leave the first basic room and enter the like the loading area in the startup sequence, you'll notice like a beam of light coming down onto the floor, and then suddenly the room lights up, but it just emphasizes that wonderful contrast, and we see it constantly through the game. Even in situations where you're in a dark cave and you're swimming towards the exit, like above you, and you can see like a very vivid like circle of light where the edge of the cave is starting to catch the sunlight. And this kind of thing, I mean, it's just aesthetic obviously, but it really does make you feel like you're in a living, breathing world.
Downloading call contact. I've located the black box of Anita Gottschall, the colony purser. Partial voice data retrieved.
We're so hungry.
Anita always liked to watch you shuffle cards. She said you had a knack for holding things. Find out what happened to her.
So way back in the day when Subnautica was first in early access, there was actually no story. It was basically a big sandbox for survival. There was loads of assets floating around, and as they added new systems to the experience, it was actually the story that was the last thing to be added. Now, a lot of people, including myself, were worried that if they just kind of like shoved the story in at the end, it just wouldn't make any sense. But thankfully, they did pull it off, and it did make sense, and it does work. So with Subnautica 2 in the early access, we now have a much more feature-complete experience than the first two games. We've got sandbox, we've got survival, we've got the creatures. They've got all of that in place, but also the narrative, the PDA messages, and all the other different narrative elements, they feel not only in place but much more fleshed out than the first two games. So just a heads up before I carry on, I'm not going to spoil any major story plot points, but I am going to be talking about the basic concepts of the setup. So if you want to go in with a completely blank slate, like press pause now and leave this video alone. So, like any good sci-fi program or series, you'll know that there's always like a mysterious evil corporation like Wayland involved with stuff like this. And obviously in this universe, it's Altera who are the big company. Now, I don't know if this was mentioned in the first two games, but the company now have the ability to almost save consciousness onto like a hard drive and then basically print people out when they are required. And this is mentioned quite a lot in the narrative of the game. I won't say exactly how it all works, but that's the basic idea. So obviously you've been heading somewhere, a destination, things have gone awry, and the ship has crashed on an unknown planet. And you've been printed out as like a work person to kind of get things moving as like an investigator and solve the problems for Noah. And that is the second AI you have to deal with. Now, we had the first AI, the PDA, in the first game and the second game. And you kind of trust the PDA. It seems to be on your side and generally trying to keep you alive. Well, this is this like synthetic love triangle now going on, because now we have this Noah AI. And let's say your PDA is your personal assistant. Noah's like the holiday rep. And his responsibility is basically managing the colonists and printing out new colonists as and when they are needed. Now, I don't know if it's ever explained, but my immediate thought was, if you print somebody out and then they die or they get ill and they get rid of them, and then you print somebody else out again from a previous save, like, how are they handling consciousness with that? Like, obviously, from your point of view, as in the person who's ill or getting sick or dying, that's your life ending. And so, yeah, the other person gets printed out with new materials, but they're not you. Like, you're you.
How do we know you're you?
Of course I'm me.
But who the fuck are you, Gary?
I'm Gary King. All right, there's only one Gary King. How do I know you guys are you?
We've been together the whole time.
Well, you might all not be you.
And so the person getting printed out is a new consciousness. So as far as you're concerned, you're fucked. That's it. Your life's over. So I'm not sure how they're all okay with this. Maybe there's some like technology that makes it so your consciousness goes through all of these different bodies. I don't really know how they're going to figure this out, or if they ever are going to explain it. But these are the kind of things I think about when I'm like dealing with sci-fi situations like this one. On some levels, this is very similar to the first two games. This is classic Subnautica. You're going around, you're gathering resources, you eventually like build a base, you scan a few things with a scanner, and then you can like build an actual structure. Once you've got your structure, you build your fabricator, and then you are literally just going through the material treadmill, aren't you? You're finding titanium, you're finding quartz, you're finding copper, and as you venture into new areas, you are usually treated to these new materials, or you'll find different ways of gathering different elements and so on. Now, I really like how they've structured the environments in this game. So, in the first games, they almost felt like a bit haphazard almost, especially the first game. You would go into areas and there would be just resources scattered all over the place. But with this one, there seems to be more of a rhyme and a reason as to why things are in different places. Like, for example, if you're looking for quartz, you usually find it within these like coral shells. So once you see a coral shell, you get like a way into it, and then you find little fragments of quartz. Or if you're looking for copper, you usually find copper within caves, like hanging down from the upper parts of the cave, like on the roof. So yeah, it does seem like they've given the biospheres a lot more attention in terms of how they work this time. So how's the game been received so far in terms of critical success? Well, the game has sold well over 2 million copies, and that was in the first few days. And that's not even including the Game Pass people. So yeah, really good start. And I hope the CEO who tried to screw the developers over from Krafton, I hope wherever he is, I hope he's watching this and yeah, assessing his life choices, because what a shitty thing to do to these developers to try and just like scam them out of that bonus, and it's all just backfired. So good to see it's all come good in the end. So it's not all been plain sailing for the developers in terms of the release and the way the game has been perceived. Quite a few people within the first few hours were complaining on Steam about the EULA, the End User License Agreement. Now, it is very restrictive, and in actual fact, while I'm talking about it, I will just mention that I actually have to publicly say that I'm not associated with Krafton or the developers in terms of this game, which I don't mind doing, but you know, a lot of people don't like EULAs because they are very restrictive and they do kind of like try and control a lot of the narrative. I can understand why they were in place. This is not a finished game, and in actual fact, a lot of the files for Subnautica 2 were actually released to the public by mistake when the preload opened up to the public.
User death imminent. Proceed to
Printing now.
adaptation.
Hello.
One of the prevalent feelings of the first game was the feeling of isolation, the feeling like you were on your own on this massive water-based planet, and there's no one coming to rescue you. This is it, you were just on your own. And I always wondered, if we added other players to that equation, would it ruin the dynamic, or would it actually add something which made it worthwhile playing with other people? Well, in the first trailer to Subnautica 2, we got the first big question answered: would this be multiplayer? And of course, yes it is. You can now play with up to 3 other people in the same map. And after playing for a couple of hours of single player, I got my son to download the game and off we went. And I have to say, my first impressions were really good. So as you start the sequence that you play as a single player, the pods around you are also filled with the other players that are starting with you, and they've even added animations to the sequence. So as I turned around, I was the first out of the pod because I was the one hosting the game. I turned around and my fellow character was actually still getting out of the pod, but they've added all the animations and everything. They don't just appear next to you, they actually climb out and kind of like shake themselves off a bit. And even using the biomod upgrade station, you can actually see the other person doing their own upgrade. So again, this hasn't been like rushed through. They've really thought about like where people are going to stand when they're using the same platform. Now, in terms of how it is to play with other people, like in the broader game, I do think they have thought about it. Like, for example, when you first make a tadpole and you're going somewhere, the other players can like latch onto the side and hold on. And I like the fact that you get oxygen in that situation. So if you go down deep somewhere, the other player's not like asphyxiating on the side of your tadpole, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, I do like overall the experience, but I just hope there's enough cooperative elements and mechanics to justify its existence. I'd rather it not be everyone just going off and doing their own thing, because one problem we bumped into when we were playing together, me and my son, is that he was doing things which I didn't know he was doing, and so he'd be like getting blueprints over here, and then I'd be going off to do something over there, and it felt a little bit disjointed. I would like some type of like a HUD or UI element to be added to show what other people are doing, or maybe have like a list of goals which we say, right, you do this and I'll do that, and then we'll meet in the middle. So I think it still needs some work. Obviously this is early access, so that's exactly what this is for, but these are the things I'm thinking about now. I do like the idea of co-op, and I like the fact they're actually implementing it into the game. I think it adds another element to the replayability of it, but I want it to be, I want to have a reason for it. I don't want it just to be there. I want them to actually like add mechanics to the game where two people can make something work faster, or maybe if there's certain things that only work with two people, I wouldn't be opposed to that. So yeah, definitely some work to be done, but overall my impressions of co-op were really good. So in my opening I said that I didn't think this game would be for everyone, and the reason why I say that is because the first game felt different in a way that the world didn't care you were there. The world didn't almost know you were there. You were just surviving and trying to find resources. And that was, I think, down to the nature and the way that the game was developed. It was developed in a certain way. This game is obviously coming at the development process in a much more organized fashion, and they're bringing all the elements of the gameplay and the systems and the narrative, they're all bringing them in at the same time. So this game at the moment feels much more orientated around players, around gameplay, around servicing a player to make them happy, to give them something to do. And that's not a bad thing. It's just when you enter Subnautica 2, it feels like a very different game to the first game. And if you're a massive fan of that feeling in the first game, you may find this a bit overwhelming, or you may even find this off-putting. You might not like it, but it's definitely something to consider. So there are many other elements to this I could cover, but I don't want to get too in depth with the early access. I just wanted to give my first impressions. This is a really good start. I'm very impressed. The level of quality and the graphics, the sound, the voice acting, everything is on point, and I'm really excited now for what's to come. This game was looking like a possible casualty of 2026, and yet it's come through issues. There could still be potentially issues, we don't know, hopefully not, but this now has got a really good start, and unless something catastrophic happens, I see this in maybe 2-3 years hitting 1.0 and becoming one of the best survival games ever made. That's the dream, isn't it? So hopefully they'll make it. So if you're still here, guys, thank you very much for watching the video all the way through. I always appreciate that. I am finding out very fast. That really helps with the algorithm. If you could like and leave a comment, let me know if you're playing Subnautica 2 and what you think of it. Have you played the first games? Are you planning to? That kind of thing. I'd love to hear from all of you about, your general impression of the video as well. I always like to get some feedback, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. My next review should be a game called Phonopolis. It's a little indie game where the developers made all of the assets out of painted cardboard. It looks amazing, so I'm going to give that a go this weekend, and I'm hoping to have that done by Sunday, I would say. So yeah, look forward to that. Thanks very much, guys. Hope you're all well, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Alright, take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.